Colonel C was made in 1942, by which time I'd been an actor for 10 years and never approached a film studio at all. I was never interested in filming, no interest whatsoever. But then suddenly a request came through that they were doing auditions for the Colonel C. I was in a play called Red Letter Day, and the director came to see it and said that he was making this film, and would I do a test for it? His name was Charles Friend, he was the director. And I went on to Ealing Studios. Long story, it doesn't matter, but I did, eventually did 4 tests. I did 1, lost it, 2, lost it, 3, lost it, 4, got it, which was rather nice. And I'd met several, I knew most of the actors anyway, but suddenly I'm to be in the Colonel C. I hadn't read the book by then, but what was his name? Oh, it doesn't matter. I bumped into him in the King's Road, and I said, "Have you by any chance got a copy of the Colonel C?" He said, yes, I have, yes. I said, would you lend it to me? Because I've got to read it, because I'm auditioning for this. So I read the book quickly. I loved it, loved the book, wonderful, wonderful. I thought, how exciting. And my father had been in the Navy in the First World War, and so the family were excited that I was going to follow in the same thing. And so we set off for Plymouth, Devonport, which is where we were based, and there I met for the first time the crew of the Compass Rose. The technical advisor was Captain Jack Broom of the Royal Navy. Wonderful chap, Jackie Broom. And we had our own ship, the Compass Rose, as it was called in the film. It was actually named the Coreopsis, the real name of the frigate, not a frigate, what sort of ship was it? I've forgotten the type of ship. Corvette, the Corvette. And it had been sold to, this ship, a Royal Naval ship, had been sold to Greece at the end of the war, and they'd renamed it, and then it was so old by now it was going to be broken up. So the film company and the Ealing Studios got permission to use this ship until it was time to be taken away and broken. Only one engine was working of the two, but Captain Jack Broom, he was the sort of chap, he recruited a lot of his colleagues who'd retired from the Navy, and they all came in as members of the crew. And they made the second engine work, they polished all the brass, and the ship was beautiful. The Compass Rose, it was called. And we started filming. And what I didn't realize was that we were going to do the entire film at sea. Thank goodness I'm not seasick, ever. Lovely. So we were put up overnight in the hotel in Plymouth. Each morning we would, at the crack of dawn, and I wasn't an early bird person, I hated the mornings. We were taken down to the shipyard at Devonport, and off we set down the Tamar River, out to sea, captained by Jack Broom. He was the governor. And they'd bored 2 holes in the front of the bridge because he wasn't supposed to be seen. Jack Hawkins was the captain. But he could kneel down looking through these little tiny spy holes and he was actually steering the ship, looking like this, giving his orders down the voice pipe. And now, I have to jump a bit here, I hope you don't mind. But the point is that I've never been able to swim. And at school I couldn't swim, and people said, but of course you can, everybody can swim. No. But in 1956, I made a film called Above Us the Waves. And this was about the submarine service. And part of the film was showing submariners going through the training of a submariner. And terrifying, absolutely terrifying, some of the things to do. But we all were actors, and we just did them. And yes, so in the course of this film, I discovered that if you want to join the submarine service, you can't. Nobody can join the submarine. You join the Royal Navy, and then you volunteer to be a submariner. So all submariners are volunteers. And apparently 1 in 25 of the volunteers is rejected because they are because of negative buoyancy. I'd never heard of this before, negative buoyancy. And if you and I, no, not I, if you are lying in a swimming pool, totally relaxed, no trouble at all, the operative bits are above the surface. Just your knees and feet and toes and mouth is above the surface, just relaxed. But if I do exactly the same thing, I'm 4 inches under the surface, which isn't very funny if you're at sea. Because apparently I don't have enough air in my body, not in my lungs, not only with the lungs, but in the body. I have less air than normal people. And I was soon to discover that when we were filming The Cruel Sea. Because every day we went out, as I say, in the ship, down the Tamar, out into the English Channel, until we were out of sight of land, and we would then start filming. And it was so exciting. Oh, wonderful. I can still remember clearly my very first day. It was when I was arriving on deck. Jack Hawkins was already there, the captain, and I had to come up and join him, covered in oil and anyway. I hadn't met Jack before, and he was wonderful. But as I say, we did the entire film at sea. People said, "But you did it in a tank." No, we didn't. At sea. And we were all the time looking for the sea to be rough. We needed a rough sea for most of the time. And we couldn't get it rough enough, apparently. And I spent a lot of time later in the editing rooms. I discovered this extraordinary thing that you cannot put a camera on a ship and film another ship, because one's going up and down in the sea, and you will keep missing each other. So the one or the other, the camera or the person, has got to be on dry land. So they put the camera on the rocks, and the ship would come through, and we were filmed at sea in the boat itself, in the ship itself. Soon learned not to call it the boat, the ship. Yes. There was a wonderful occasion when we were in the harbour, yes. Portland Harbour, with the ship, the Compass Rose. And we were supposed to be doing the Atlantic convoy. So the ship was covered in ice, snow and ice. So so how do you get snow and ice when you're filming in June? So what they did was to cover the superstructure of the ship with, Epsom salts. Yes, the plaster first, would be white, then covered that with Epsom salts, which made it glisten. And we had to come out of the harbour looking as if we were in the middle of the winter. And this coincided with a very famous American warship called Missouri being in harbour, what was then the world's largest ship. Americans. And as we came out, we were the laughing stock of everybody, because where we were totally white. And we soon discovered that there's a recognition signal that one ship sends to another. You flash out on the Aldous lamp, "What ship and whither bound?" That's what the question is. You have to answer with your call sign. And our call sign was the Compass Rose sailing the cruel sea. So as we came out of Portland Harbour, there was this enormous, it took a quarter of an hour to pass it. Enormous ship. Out they flashed, what ship and whither bound? And Jack Broom flashed out, quick as a flash, the Compass Rose sailing the cruel sea, who are you? Who are you? You could have heard the roar from the deck of their ship. However, as I say, that was fine until we got to scenes when the survivors of the ship, yes, no, another story first. Just don't go away, stay where you are. When we did the sinking of the Compass Rose, she is struck, and we are going to sink. Well, you can only do one take. You're going to sink a ship, and it goes, you're going to do one take. So this had to be done in a tank. This was the only thing to be done in a tank. At Denham Studios, which had an enormous acre-size tank, vast tank. And we did it at night so that we wouldn't see the surrounding houses. And they've got this replica of the Compass Rose from the bank, shall I call it, out into the middle of the tank. But it is hinged at the bank. So there's the ship. Right now, the sinking ship, you could watch it going down. It's hinged here, down with the ship. Right. Second take, bring it up. Another take, down we go, down goes the ship. We did about 6 takes. But the second assistant came to me and said, can you swim? And I said, no, I can't. He said, right, if you jump from over there. So he gave me a position furthest from the bank. I thought that was a bit unkind. If I can't swim. Oh, but of course it must be like a swimming pool. There's a shallow end, and deep end here, shallow end there. So my position was, as I say, furthest from the bank. And there we are, fully dressed, and they had smoke guns blowing smoke all over the place, steam coming out of every orifice on the ship, and an aeroplane propeller, a wave machine making waves, running across the tank and then back, and an aeroplane propeller blowing off the spume off the top of the waves. And it was very realistic, I can tell you. And we could only just hear the whistle going for action. So we were all on the deck, ready to jump overboard. And we heard the whistle, and we clambered onto the side of the ship, jumped, and I went, and I was in 12 feet of water. And I couldn't swim. And the wave machines are blowing towards the ship. And so everybody else struck out manfully. And they reached the bank, and I was still saying, now what do I do? I was trying to remember how to do a breaststroke, and being blown backwards all the time. I couldn't move. And people climbed out onto the bank. Right, that's it, they say, wrap it, that's it. Where's Donald? They looked around, they turned all the lights out, nobody could see me. And I wasn't shouting exactly, but they said, oh, he's still in there. And Jack Hawkins, bless his heart, dived in, came over and rescued me and took me to the bank. And but for Jack, I wouldn't be here today. So I've been eternally grateful to him. But then, slightly worse, was when we had to be seen, each individual leading actor was to be seen swimming away from the sinking ship. They decided to do this in, well, you know all about films. I mean, instead of doing separate shots for each leading actor, they filmed all the leading actors swimming past the camera, past, pause, second actor, pause, third actor. So it was Jack Hawkins, Denham Elliott, Sinden, Stanley Baker, one after the other, swimming past. Can you see what I mean? They're just swimming past the lens. And so, right, okay, we're ready for this. So we're all in the water. Right, Jack Hawkins swimming through past the lens. Denham Elliott, then a gap. Stanley Baker. So they said, Donald, we didn't see you. I said, well, I swam through all right. They said, we didn't see you. Sorry, could do it again. Okay. Turn over, action. Jack Hawkins, Denham Elliott, a gap. Stanley Baker. Donald, where were you? I said, well, I swam through it. Because I was swimming through 6 inches under the surface. Because I couldn't be seen. So the only way they could get this shot of me, will this be seen by anybody? I do hope not. This is terrible. You see, whatever you, don't tell anybody. But the only way they could get the shot of me swimming past the lens was to get the stuntman to be under the water, to take a deep breath, and he swam doing the breaststroke under the surface, and I was lying on his back doing the crawl. And that's me swimming past there. But don't tell anyone, because it's a bit embarrassing that. However, I enjoyed the idea of filming. It was so exciting for me. And to be on the ship, and it wasn't a question of acting. I mean, you were living the life of a sailor. And we soon learned you didn't talk about going upstairs and downstairs. Oh, no. So we learned the correct terminology for everything. And there was a frightening moment when at night, we filmed this at night, I was in charge of the forecastle gun party, my character. I say, aye. And Jack Hawkins on the bridge, looking at the enemy over there, and he had to say, shoot him, and I had to say, fire, and the gun went, this enormous 6-inch gun, no, 4-inch gun, I beg your pardon, 4-inch gun, blew off. And so I'm there with my binoculars, and I heard Jack say, action. No, he didn't say action. He said, after action, he said, shoot, and I said, fire, bang. And out from the muzzle of the gun plopped a burning piece of cotton wool. Oh, that won't do, no, I can see that. And I couldn't hear the director say action, because we've got anti-flash gear on. And so I thought, it was not a very loud noise, so I'll take the cotton wool out. So I took the cotton wool out of my ears. And here am I looking through my own binoculars. And on the horizon, I could see a light bobbing about. Oh, that's funny. Who's that? Unbeknown to me, they've decided to use a live round, because the first one, just this burning cotton wool, that won't do. So they decided to use a live round. So I'm with my binoculars, I hear action, shoot, I said fire, nearly deafened me, because I stand right beside this gun. And a live round missed a fishing boat by apparently 2 or 3 yards. We nearly sank a fishing boat. Accidentally, of course. I wonder if I should have told that story. It's all right, isn't it? Yes. Then, of course, there was the wonderful moment when, at the end of the war, so many people in the course of the film have died. And so Jack and I are returning now on our new ship called the Porchester Castle. No, it wasn't. That was the ship we used, but I can't remember the name of what we called it. It's a long time ago, you know. You're asking me a lot of me to remember all these details. We have finished, the war is over. we're now coming up the Tamar River. Well, it was supposed to be, no it wasn't, that's what we were finishing, to a harbour, and to drop anchor in a harbour. A man-built harbour, not a natural one. And in the harbour already are 3 of Her Majesty's real destroyers already in this harbour. And we were coming up the Tamar to turn into the harbour. Jackie Broom on his knees looking through, steering the ship. Starboard 15, slow ahead both. And Jack on the deck saying, and all I had to do was to shout out to the crew, stand by your wires and fenders. I never knew why I said wires and fenders, but that was my line. Stand by your wires and fenders. And as I did this, members of the crew would come forward and drop fenders over the side and throw hawsers or ropes to attach a hawser onto the quay side. So we're coming up at 5 knots, okay, up the Tamar. We turn right into the harbour. Stand by your wires and fenders. Start. And Jackie Broom parked that ship on its marks. And you can't do that with a ship, but he did. He parked it beautifully. You couldn't. It was a 3-point turn for a parking. Oh, wonderful beautiful piece of parking. Right beside Her Majesty's destroyer, one of Her Majesty's real destroyers. This great thing. And we all gathered round Jackie, because he'd been doing it, looking through like this. And with Jack Hawkins officially saying, stand, and I said, stand by your wires and fenders, yes. And we congratulating Jack Broom on this superb piece of seamanship. Wonderful, wonderful. And he said, oh, experience, just experience. I've done it many times before. Then came the order, sorry, 2 of the cameras weren't working. Something had gone wrong, a hair in the gate or something. Sorry, we've got to do it again. Oh, so we turned the ship round. I didn't, they did. They turned the ship round, back down the Tamar, out of sight. And we get over the Tannoy, we get, okay, red action. Now, Jack Broom is a little bomb happy by now, a little punch drunk. And instead of the 5 knots we'd come up at, he came up at 8 knots, which is quite fast. And I was on the forecastle, and I thought, my God, that water's going a bit fast. We run, turn right into the harbour, and I got the order, action. I said, stand by your way. They've already done it. These chaps have already thrown the things over the side. I thought, something's wrong somewhere. And we hit Her Majesty's destroyer, broadside on. And our anchor, which sticks out of the side of the ship, tore a hole 9 feet long by 10 inches wide in the side of Her Majesty's destroyer. And if you see the film today, at that moment, at the end of the film, you'll see us coming into the harbour, and then, like going over a speed bump, a sleeping policeman, whoop, as we hit the ship. You don't hear any sound. And as we struck, it's a nasty tearing noise, like opening a tin can. An officer came out of the bridge of the destroyer and came over and said, who the hell's driving? No, what did he say? Who the hell's driving your boat? Errol Flynn? And it was Jack Hawkins. We felt we should say that. But it did look as if Jack Hawkins was driving it. You see, Jack Broom was down there. Oh, yes. And this, it sounds as if it was all fun and games. Well, we had to enjoy it. Michael Balkan, who was running Ealing Studios at the time, he was the one who would have negotiated the deal. We met, who's the author? Nicholas Montserrat. We met him on a number of occasions. He came down when we were shooting. Never when we were at sea, oddly enough. He only came down. And subsequently I read several of his books, which I enjoyed enormously. Oh, yes. Because we did some of the interior scenes in the studio, as I'm sure you appreciate. The interior scenes, there's no point in us being out at sea at a great expense. So we did those in the studio, and I got to know the editors, and I used to spend a lot of my spare time in the editing room, watching them the way they were cut. Because in those days it was, you took two ends of a film and stuck them together, not as they do today. You know. And I learned this extraordinary thing that if you, on the screen you're watching, if a ship is going from left to right, it is going into action. And if right to left, it's when they're coming home. And apparently it used to apply to all films. In the cowboy film, if they're out riding, if they're going from left to right, they're going into unknown territory. Right to left, they're coming back to base. Which is it helped the public to know where we were. And it's the same with reading a book. If you're reading a book, your eye goes from left to right into unknown territory. Then you go back to the end of the line, you go back, you're going to safe, you know where you are. Safe territory. Is that boring? No. But this idea of the ship, and on one occasion, he was showing me on the screen in the editing room a ship going, he said, now that's the perfect shot. That's the perfect shot we need. But it's going from right to left instead of left to right. I said, so what are you going to do? He said, reverse the negative. And of course, that's what they did, just turn the negative around and you got the ship going in the right direction. And, oh no, he said, well, it was another film. Yes, I mustn't jump about. I do that. I can't be relied upon. In the book, of course, it just shows you how dated in a way it is. In the book, Lockhart, which is my character, has an affair with Julie, Virginia McKenna character. And they go to a cottage in Scotland, and all they're doing for a month is bonking. I don't know what word to use on this, but you know, I mean, we know what we're talking about. They're bonking for a month. Well, they weren't allowed because of the censorship in those days. The censor would not allow any of those shots to be. So we never, unfortunately, filmed any of that. So my scenes with Virginia McKenna, because I believe it was her very first film. I think it was, and she was an innocent girl. Yes, can't describe it any better than that. She was a very innocent girl. And the only scene we were allowed, Charles Friend, the director, he said, I don't know how we can get over this lack of the scenes with you and Julia. He said, but the wartime, it was very difficult to an unmarried couple to get a girl into bed, you know? And so you have to be, you would be in the street under a lamppost. So the only love scene that we had in the entire film was Virginia McKenna and I under a lamppost, the light from a lamppost in a snog. And in that you had to read a month's bonking. Oh dear, is that naughty of me, isn't it? It has become a classic, hasn't it? And the premiere was in Leicester Square at the Odeon. And of course my entire family turned up for the premiere. And my name was going to be in lights for the first time. And the billing, if you remember the billing, was Jack Hawkins, Donald Sinden, in The Cruel Sea. And you won't believe it, Queen Mary had the impertinence to die the night before the premiere. And all the the lights around the cinemas were all turned off. So for the premiere, my name wasn't up. It was later, but it wasn't up in lights, and I was dying to see it in lights. Because seeing yourself on the screen for the first time is a bit frightening. There was a sweet story about, no, we haven't got time. Yes, just, so, oh yes, I saw it saw the film for the first time at a preview. And said, Jack Hawkins, Donald Sinden, in. And I thought, I'd never seen that before. This wonderful, wonderful. So I don't remember the film at all. So then there was another sneak preview done somewhere. And again, all I could do was watch the billing. And then the first time was at the premiere. And I was so excited by the premiere that everybody in dinner jackets, everything was here. And I don't remember it. I had to go and see it privately in the local cinema before I saw the film for the first time. Oh, I'm talking a lot of nonsense, aren't I?
What did you think of the film when you saw it?
Oh, it is, well, I have to say, it is a great film. And I'm unbelievably proud to have been in it. And to play a leading part in, because my character was the first person singular of the book, but Jack Hawkins was the name. But of course, it's offended me because this film is shown twice a year on terrestrial television, isn't it? And since 1952, we have never received a penny in royalties, because actors don't get, or in those days, didn't get any royalties. So all those years when I could have been coining it, not a penny have I seen. Nor did Jack. I spoke to Doreen the other day, his widow, and he didn't get paid either. We got paid for the film in 1952, but not for the releases. I won't be paid for this, will I? No, God damn me. They would do it all over again. Sorry, cut.